Hey creative friends, welcome to tracibautistaCOLOR. In this video, I want to share with you a little behind the scenes peek at my handcrafted artisanal ink collections. So I've been creating and designing paint collections to sell and ink collections to sell since 2017, and I thought I would just give you a little overview and share some swatches of my inks. So I want to start with this page here. This was my very first explorations into handcrafted artisanal inks. So these were just dabs of color as I designed the ink bottles. So this was back in August of 2017, and inside this journal there are lots of pages of just swatches, and I have all of my ink making journals kind of look like this, where you get to see basically the history and the progression as I design a color. And so as I'm mixing it, I swatch out the color onto a variety of papers. So this is a really inexpensive sketchbook from Daiso, which is something that I've shared on the channel before, but you can see some of the inks as they're developed. This was the Pop of Spring color collection in 2017. And then sometimes I will also quickly sketch or paint out a design. So this was some flowers that I did with that collection. So it's really fun to go back and see all of the colors as they develop. And so this one was also, I think, probably 2018. Looks like it might have been the Boho Caravan collection. And sometimes I will tear out pages from my sketchbook and then use those in other pieces or hang them up on the wall. This is from the very first Prism color set of inks. So this was a rainbow set of colors that came with, I believe, 7 or 8 bottles. So from red all the way through purple or violet. And it's been such a fun process to make and to create. And I have created, here's some, over thousands of handcrafted bottles over the years. And they usually are only available within my paint subscription, my quarterly paint subscription. And so they've ranged from different types of like square bottles to some with droppers and some that are just regular ink bottles. So 10 milliliters to 15 milliliters. And many of them have a little bit of shimmer in them. So you can see that color in the light there. But you can also tell because the mica will settle at the bottom. And so you just need to give it a little bit of a shake, and then you see how it all mixes in there. And so each one of them has a hand-painted label. And again, I've made thousands of bottles of ink. I just pulled out a few from my own personal collection. And many of these, this collection I did back in, I think, 2018. And because of the bottle, I recognize because of the bottle. So now most of the bottles that I've been doing are this 10 milliliter size, and they all have a phenolic cap, so it won't leak. So you can see that little cone in there. And I love the glass bottles because you can reuse them. So once they're empty, you can refill it with your own inks. You just need to sterilize it, wash it out. You can boil them in water, hot water, and then reuse the bottles. So it's a nice sustainable packaging. And I just grabbed a few other things that I wanted to share. So when I first started designing my inks and watercolors, I would create these little swatch cards. So these are all of the inks from 2017, 2018, and you can see some of the mica and the shimmer that's in there. But the beauty of them is that some of them have this beautiful kind of gradation and mix of color when you add water, so you get to really see the chromatography of the inks. And I've layered in some of my little, this is a watercolor in there, so little dots, and then also my reactive crystals, which you drop into the wet ink or wet watercolor, and it disperses a little bit of mica and dye into your color. And then as you layer the inks, you can see that shimmer there. That's so pretty. I think this was from the holiday collection from 2018. I should have labeled these, but I didn't. But a lot of these I can kind of go and look back at my paint making journals and figure out which collections they come from. The beauty of them, like I said, is in the layering too. I love this. Is 2 inks. So this set of swatch cards, I think everything in here is something that I layered a couple of the inks in. So you can see how dark they start. And then when you start to add water, you get to see that really beautiful undertone and the chromatography as the water dries. So it creates some really beautiful effects. All of the thin lines on here are either done with a blunt needle syringe or a dip pen. So I use a dip pen to a calligraphy nib to do a lot of that thin mark making over the top. So I brush on the ink with a paintbrush and then add a little bit of water. Here's more of the reactive crystals on there. So you get some really interesting textures with that. And I'll share those in another video, but I just wanted to kind of share some of these ink swatches so that you could see the range and the variety of color. So this is also a fun project. If you have a lot of inks or watercolors, or even my handmade inks and watercolors, I cut down watercolor paper into these 2 by, I think is this 2 by 3? This actually might be smaller. I can't remember. I think they are 2 by 3. I should measure that. And it makes a great surface to swatch things out. These are some of the inks from my Lanikai collection. So if you look closely, there are inks in here this is the Lanikai Waves collection. So there's one here that's so beautiful. It's got a little bit of like lavender, a little hint of pink in there, and this beautiful light blue. So you start to see that come out as it dries. This is the Man O' War ink. This is on, is this a mixed media journal? Let me see. This is on, yes, a Strathmore Skills. So this is the 200 series mixed media journal, and kind of more student grade paper. So different papers will show the inks very differently. So one of my favorites was this Man O' War ink. It's a really dark blue. Right now on this paper, it doesn't look as dark, but it has these beautiful undertones of pink and a little bit of purple in there too. And it has shimmer, but I don't think you can really see it on this paper. Let's see if I can see. These were the watercolors from that collection, but there's also, let's see. This is the green and the purple inks from that collection. So painting it with a, what did I use? This is a lot of water on the brush, so you can really see how you can get like the darker, and then once you add more water, you get more of that transparent look to the ink. This was painted with a 1/4 inch silver brush dagger striper. Good thing I can read my writing. Same with these. Oh, here, these are some more of the inks. This really shows the chromatography. So they're purple, pink, blue shades of Lanikai. Look at that. It's got this turquoise and these beautiful draw down. When you put water in it, you can see this grayish purple, and then there's that pink in there. And some of these did have shimmer. I think this one does here, but I don't know, you can't really see it that well on this paper. But this was one of the journals that I just grabbed because I wanted to share what the inks look like. Let's see if there's anything fun in here. And so here, so this is why I use these journals to swatch out while I am designing a collection. So this is a Strathmore sketch. It's a great one just to see how the inks lay on this particular thin paper. So I put on here, as this dried, I looked at it, I'm like, oh, there's way too much binder on there. So that's my little note. But here you can see, let's see if you can see it in the light. I don't know. This is got a little bit of beautiful kind of 24 karat sparkle in there. But inside here, here's another set. I think this is probably, is this the Magnolia collection? This is some of the inks. Got this really beautiful, vibrant pink ink in that collection. I think it was the Magnolia collection. Let's see. This is, yeah, so Magnolia Blossoms. This is actually the water, is this watercolors? I think these are the watercolors, and then these were some of the inks from that collection. This was a really fun one back in 2020. I did that one. So again, you can see how I am testing out the colors. This is the Lanikai on this side. It says sometimes I label these, sometimes I don't. This is Lanikai, all the inks from Lanikai, and more Lanikai. See if I can find some other things. So these are pigment bars, and that's the Wander collection. So this is from this year, 2023. But a lot of these journals are filled with, this is inks also from maybe the Wild Blooms. Here's Pop of Spring. So this is 2017. So this journal spans a lot of different years because when I am creating a collection, I have multiple journals out so that I can test everything out. So this was the Prism collection in 2018, and I haven't released another one of those lately. Oh, I know I did the Kaleidoscope collection, which was a little similar, but different pigments that I used. It was another kind of rainbow set back in, I think that was 2020. But the nice thing is, so you can see some of the sparkle, see at the edges there. So when you use it, even with a dip pen, you get these beautiful little shimmers, like you when it hits the light. I should find some of my lettering to show you what they look like when you use them. So when I use them with a dip pen, I take a brush and just apply it to the tip of the dip pen, and then I can write with it. And then I've also done a series of natural dye inks. This is some of them. I thought I would just open this up so you can see. But playing with some of the flowers and foliage in my backyard, in my garden. These were done in 2017, and I talk a little bit about the process of these. So I grabbed this journal just to go back and see some of the inks that I have made with natural flowers. So this is like the crepe, this is crepe myrtle. And this was also from my backyard, or from one of my walks actually in the front yard. And this has a beautiful range of color from, I think I added in some alum. I didn't label these. I probably labeled them somewhere else, but that was in 2019. That, let's see, this was Thai basil. So a whole different process when you make natural inks, but look at these colors. They're just so gorgeous. So I mixed it with iron, with baking soda, with alum, iron, what is that, dropped in baking soda sprinkle. So lots of different ways you can use. So this is just, I just wanted to show this so you can see how it is, a little bit different. I probably will go do a little deep dive more into my natural botanical inks. This has changed quite a bit since I did this back in, this is organic red cherries. I should find the original picture and show you, but it still looks pretty good. But these used to be hot pink and now they're kind of peachy. But this was done in, let me see if I have it in another part of this journal. I want to say those were like maybe 2020. So 3 years later, let's see, yeah, 2020, because this was around the same time with the organic blueberries. So this has changed quite a bit too. So I normally will take photographs. So that is just an overview of some of the inks that I've made throughout the years. And I thought I would do a little bit of swatching. In my Swatch Studio digital membership, I have monthly printables that you can use to make and create swatches. This is just printed on a Canson XL sand grain paper. So if you have paper that you love working on, my printer is a laser jet printer, and so far the heaviest that I've put in there is this 98-pound paper. I'm trying to get my watercolor paper in there, but it's a little thick. And so I have lots of different swatch cards that I've made over the years, and these are also ones that sometimes they're inside the Tracy Bautista subscription, and they're also printables, but I print these out and use them to swatch out different paints and inks that I create, and I provide them inside my boxes as printables. Okay, so I thought it would be fun to do a little swatching, and I have a couple of things that I'm going to share. Okay, so I have a little Hahnemühle sketchbook. I love this paper, and I also have a mixed media journal over here, and then I just grabbed a bunch of my favorite brushes and tried to clean them off a little bit, and I'll probably swatch with a couple of them. And I also grabbed one of my dip pens. You can see it is very well used and dirty. And then I have an ink well. So I love these little ceramic dishes. I get them at Daiso, which is the Japanese, now $1.75 store. It used to be a dollar store, but it's great. They have all these really great little dishes. So you can get these and use them for a single color, or sometimes I just mix inside here. And let me just move some of my ink bottles over so you can see a little bit of this little thing here. One of my favorite brushes is the silver. You probably have seen this on many of my videos. It's the Silver Brush Golden Natural. This is the 1/2-inch dagger striper. So I paint a lot with these because I do paint a lot of florals and botanicals. So a lot of my brushes are the dagger striper. And then another one is the Silver Brush Black Velvet. This is the 3/8-inch striper. And also the triangle brush, which I didn't grab, but I'm going to use for swatching. I actually prefer to use the dagger stripers. So that's all I have. And then I have some of my inks, and I'm going to start with, this is one of my favorites. And it may be helpful also if you have a pipettes, or even a glass dropper. I use the pipettes. I actually reuse them. You just have to make sure you clean them. And make sure that they're, like, that's a little bit dirty. I just had a whole set of, here we go. You just have to make sure you clean them if you're gonna dip them in here. Sometimes I'll just pour the inks into the well, but it's fun to use a dropper and paint with it. So I also have glass droppers too that I use, and to do some of my other intricate work, I also use a blunt needle syringe, but for this purpose, we're just gonna use the dropper today. And I wanna show you, if you use this straight out of the bottle and just color, you get to see how dark the ink can get. So I just put a little bit in there. Hopefully this won't overflow. There we go. And then I can take my brush also and just let it kind of flow out too. So you see the dark all the way till it gets a little bit more transparent. So you don't want to move this page or this will start to move around. So I'll just let it sit there and dry once I'm done. And I'm going to grab one of, this is also a beautiful duotone ink. This one, I'm just going to use a brush. And as it starts to kind of bleed out, you'll start to see some of the colors that are in the inks. You can also put some of these in fountain pens, but you just have to be careful. I'll put a little bit out on my... I wouldn't put them... I use not very expensive fountain pens. Like I have a couple of TWSBI pens that they work great in. I also have used kind of the really inexpensive Pilot pens. And this one has a little bit of, I think it's like a purpley pink. You can start to see how, oh, those two mixed a little bit. That's really pretty. And that's kind of the fun of it too. You never know what's going to happen when the two colors kind of collide. Oh, that's so pretty. And if you do have too much ink, you can also blot it down too, if you want to get it to be a little less ink on the paper. But again, like I said, I'm just gonna leave it. And then I'm gonna take another pipette. And this one has a little bit of mica in it. And this is why I love working with inks, because you get this beautiful, just like unexpected mix of color once they touch. And this one, this is actually also from probably 2018. So they last quite a long time, and they still smell really good. And then I'm going to take my dagger striper, and normally, actually, I should have cleaned that off on paper. I'll grab this journal, and I'm going to clean off my brush. So I dip my brush in a little bit of water and then just kind of brush it out. So now, see, you can start to see the pink. I don't want to move the journal, so when I'm done, I'll do a little video where I pan closer because I don't want to move the paper. But you can see how it starts to separate. There's this grayish black that's coming out. There's a little bit of that light pink, and then this one, when it dries, you'll see the mica come out of that too. So the thing with the inks, it just like paints. If you don't want them to mix, you need to clean your brush off. And so that's why I have this separate sketchbook that I usually will clean off my brushes. So I also create these beautiful shimmer sheer inks. So they have a little bit of mica in them, and then they are a tint of the color. So when you use them, they're going to be very light, but the idea for, I'm going to do this swatch here so you see it. You can see it's like really, really light. There's something on this one. It's really light, but the beauty of these inks is that they're supposed to be mixed with the watercolors and the inks that I create. So because they're highly shimmer, what I love to do is drop them into color so they'll blend a little bit. I'm gonna put a little bit in there, and you'll get to see this really pretty sparkle come out. And while it's really pale here, it's really meant to be used as a mix in to the other colors. So I'm just gonna take this and show you. You can get some beautiful light tints of the color, but really they're meant to accent some of the other inks. So you can start to see it work its magic in there as it dries. And let's do one more. I think I have a green, one of the greens in here. This is a pretty one. This was from the holiday collection last year, and it's got a little bit of this beautiful, can you see that shimmer in there? It's really pretty. It's got this like turquoise shimmer. And I'm gonna grab another little dropper and grab some of the color so you can actually see that shimmer in there. I don't know if you can see in the camera, but I can see it. And then we'll do color here, and this one would be pretty to mix with some of the other colors also. So now you can start to see how the pink is coming out of that. This is this was Manowar from the Lanikai collection. And this one, it does come out a little bit lighter, but when it dries, you'll see some of that sparkle come out of it. And let's see, what else do I have over here? I think I brought out one of my brownish orange colors. I just love seeing what happens when everything kind of mixes together. So much fun. So if I drop a little bit of pink in here. And let that kind of run. And then if I want to do any mark making, I'm gonna take my dip pen. You can also use, I love using like coffee stir sticks. I cut them into little angles like this, and you can dip them. I actually used this in my wax the other day, but you can dip them and draw with them too. This is a great tool. I wonder if I have any that are clean. I'll have to find some. So what I do with the dip pen is I take a brush, make sure this is clean. I have some ink over here, and then I just apply it right to the nib. So this obviously is going to take longer to use and paint with when you do it this way, but you can get some really beautiful mark making when you use this. Oops, I kind of put too much there. Try not to move this too much. So you can use the inks, even my watercolors too work great. You can just dip your brush into the watercolor and write right on top of the, or put it right on top of the nib too. So that was a little bit messy, but you can start to see some of the lighter color. I think this was the ink that is in there. So as this dries, you'll see, I can see some of that, that lighter pink color coming out. And this has a little color in it, so I'm just going to do a swatch so you can see how it looks when you're painting with the brush that's dipped into the color versus starting with a pool of color and just letting it kind of wash out. But now as this goes, you can start to see some of that gray that's coming out of the ink there. And then if I dip my brush in a little bit of water, I can kind of continue it. So you'll see how some of that chromatography will happen with the inks as they dry. Even on here where I cleaned off my brush, you start to see some of that separation too. So see how this is turning, oh, it's so pretty. It's turning kind of this bluish gray, and it looks a little bit different, but this is a little bit more concentrated. I'm loving how that kind of bleeds out and blends out. So when I create the inks, I don't name all of them. They come in a set, and it's usually related to the collection name. So when you subscribe, you get that series of inks in the collection. And so it's a fun surprise every month, but these inks are so pretty. So as these are drying, and maybe what I'll do is film another video once this is completely dry so you can kind of see what they look like when they're dry. But this is really, the shimmer is coming out of here. You can actually see some of the shimmer over there, and that will probably shimmer a little bit more there. Thank you so much for being part of the Tracy Bautista Color family. I hope you enjoyed a peek inside some of my handcrafted artisanal ink collections, and I would love to have you join me in the limited edition Artisan Ink subscription. It's a 3-month subscription where you'll receive a different set of handcrafted inks each month for 3 months. You can find the details below, and I look forward to having you join me. Happy New Year!